Always feel like you're fighting fires and drowning in emails? You are not alone. In this episode, I am talking about the Leadership Energy Leak Assessment, a powerful boundary audit for senior leaders who want to reclaim their time, energy, and sanity. Get ready to laugh, reflect, and shake up those outdated habits as we sort through your workload into 4 revealing buckets. It's time to stop being busy and start being brilliant. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today I got one for my senior leaders out there. If you feel like you are constantly putting out fires, managing everyone else's priorities, and still checking email in the wee hours of the night, this episode is for you. Today, I'm diving into something I call the Leadership Energy Leak Assessment. It's basically a boundary audit that I use and I've used with clients. And I'm going to walk you through it today, right here, right now, because I believe every leader deserves to understand where their energy, their time, and their attention is actually going versus where it should be going. So when I ask most leaders how they spend their time, so if I asked you last week, how did you spend your time? I'm pretty certain I would get some answer along the lines of it was all a blur of urgent emails. I was in back-to-back meetings. I felt like all I did was spend my time putting fires out. Does that sound familiar? Well, here's 2 things I have learned after coaching hundreds of leaders. It is that 1, your time and attention is your greatest asset. You, your brain, your energy are your greatest asset. And 2, you cannot fix what you cannot see. And most leaders have no idea where their time and attention is spent, or the fact that it's actually leaking out in places you really don't want it to. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Right now, I want you to think about last week. Not what you planned to do, but what did you actually do? Because what we're going to do is categorize your activities into 4 buckets. And I promise you this is going to be a little bit eye-opening. So the first bucket, I want you to think, the first bucket we're going to talk about is high-impact work. So this is work that moves the needle on your key goals. Think things like strategic planning, major decision-making, developing your team, building or nurturing key relationships. This is work that only you can do and that directly impacts your team and organization success. So think to last week. How much time did you actually spend here? And really be honest. Most leaders I work with, it's shockingly little. Their intent is to spend 70% of their time in this bucket. The reality is more like 20% of their time. Okay, so if this is feeling like you, again, we're in the right place. So now onto the second bucket. So this is the bucket of work that is necessary, but technically delegatable. This is important work someone needs to be doing. But that someone doesn't necessarily have to be you, right? It could be someone else. And they may do it maybe not as well as you, maybe not as fast as you, maybe not exactly how you would do it. But they can do it. I want you to think about specifically attending meetings where you could send a representative. Doesn't technically have to be you. Or maybe administrative tasks that feel important but don't require your specific expertise. So how much time did you spend last week in this area? For most leaders, this usually averages out around 30% of their time. And again, the kicker is every hour you spend here is an hour you're not spending on high impact work. Things that actually move the needle. All right, third bucket. Urgent, but virtually no value. So this is a tricky one. These are things that feel really important in the moment, but actually don't matter in the long term. I want you to envision how many emails you got last week that were marked urgent, but really weren't. Or the meeting that could have been an email. Or how about the crisis that developed because it was really someone's poor planning that resulted in something that didn't get done. And then suddenly now it became everyone else's problem. And I want to focus specifically here on the fact that just because it's urgent for someone does not mean it's necessarily urgent for you. This is the bucket where most leaders get trapped. It feels super productive because you're busy and boy, you're checking things off the list. And does it not feel good to get that email, that inbox cleaned out? But the reality is you're not really moving anything forward in a meaningful manner because it doesn't really move any needle other than clearing out your inbox. So honestly, how many hours did you spend here? The last bucket is energy drains. These are the things that you and we all do it out of guilt, habit, or people pleasing. And so I want anything that comes to mind where you're like, well, that's how we've always done it, is pretty much a red flag for you probably should challenge that as an energy drain. So think about the meetings you attend because you've always attended them, even though it maybe isn't relevant anymore, or the reports that you're personally reviewing because you've always done that, but technically you have other people beneath you now who can do it. Or how many requests you say yes to because you don't want to seem unhelpful or uncommitted. This bucket might seem small, but it's absolutely deadly because it doesn't just drain your time, it drains your mental energy. This is the bucket of time that you will most likely feel resentful about and that will drive your overwhelm because it doesn't actually help you in the long run. It's really just appeasing someone else. Now, here's where most boundary advice, I believe, goes wrong. Most people just tell you, you need to get better at saying no. Duh. It's like telling someone who's drowning, just go swim better. But it doesn't address how we get you out of where you are. And the truth is, we have all been there. We have all found ourselves putting our time in places that don't actually drive value. So how do we collectively start moving ourselves in a different direction? I want you to get away from asking the question of, how do I say no more, and replace it with a couple other questions. What boundary is missing that is allowing this to reach me in the first place? What system could I create to prevent this from becoming my problem? And lastly, what would I need to delegate, automate, or eliminate completely to create more capacity to focus on the things that are most important? So I want to give you a quick example. I've worked with a CEO who was spending hours every week reviewing very detailed operational reports. And when we started digging into where he was spending his time, he said something that was really poignant. He said, well, I've always done this. This is how have been successful. It's by being in the weeds. It's by knowing everything that's going on in my business. This is how I've maintained success. So his hardcore belief was that if he didn't know and exist in the weeds, the business would fall apart. But here's the thing. He had a very, very competent COO, a man who was really good at his job. And when we challenged him on why didn't he trust his CEO, he said he absolutely did. And what surfaced was that this deep dive in the weeds weekly assessment was a legacy habit from his career that he had a core belief was the only way he could maintain success. So did I tell him just stop reviewing reports? No. What we did do is we trialed something where we created a system where his COO would create weekly summaries with specific call outs to launches or initiatives that were of immediate importance. And his COO was tasked with flagging anything that came across as unusual, anything that might be a beginning of a problem. He agreed to it, and let me tell you the result. He got back several hours a week. He had better operational oversight because everything was broken down for him. He was not now having to go dig and figure it out. And the ultimate win, I think, for him, which was so important, was not just his time and attention came back, but he improved his relationship with his COO because his COO didn't feel micromanaged anymore. He felt empowered, he felt respected, he felt trusted. So there was a huge opportunity there in simply setting up a new system. So it wasn't just a boundary, but it was a system. And you're not just saying no to something. You're making it so that you get he got the information he needed, and could go focus on the things that were the most important. He got to go be visionary and strategic, which is what a CEO needs to be. So now what I want to do is I want to break down for each of these buckets, how do we go about thinking about boundary setting or systems that we could set up within each of these to help you start moving the needle. So for high impact work, what boundary would protect more time for you to do this work? Maybe it's creating non-negotiable blocks of strategic thinking, relationship building, whatever it is. If you have the privilege of an assistant, have that person screen your calendar to ensure every meeting has an agenda so you know what the meeting's about, what the objective is, and what are the intended outcomes. Because that way you can then quickly decide, do I need to be there or can I delegate this to someone else? Huge. All right, bucket 2, for necessary but delegatable work. What systems would make delegation automatic? Maybe it's training teams to make certain decisions without you. Could it be creating an approval threshold where decisions only reach your desk when it hits a certain threshold or impact level? Think about it in that way. Is there someone on your team no differently than my CEO that you can empower and give them the opportunity to gain experience in and of themselves as they continue to grow professionally? So you're not walking away completely, but you're giving an opportunity to someone you trust to grow through delegation. Third, for urgent but low value work. So what filter can you create? In this one, I would encourage you to think about, what does urgent mean to you? How can we create a criteria before it gets to you that you don't have to spend your time on it? And again, just because it's an urgent issue for someone else doesn't mean it's an urgent issue for you. I also would have you know that most urgent things resolve within 24 hours. So is this something that you can set that threshold? Or is this something where a different leader can step in because it more aligns with their task, their roles and responsibilities than yours? The last one, for energy drains, what would you need to eliminate entirely? What do you, in this case, need to say no to? Now, I'll be candid, this one requires usually hard conversations, a lot of fear that you might damage relationships. But if you handle it correctly, that doesn't have to be the case. And I will tell you, when you start to create the boundaries here and you stop engaging in things that drive no value, you're going to feel quite liberated. So again, what I want you to do right after this episode is just take 10 minutes. Write down your biggest energy drain from last week. Pick one. I'm sure you have a lot, but just pick one. And the thing that made you think, in case you really need to decide, which one made you think, why am I doing this? Oh, God, why did I say yes to this? And then ask yourself 3 questions around that particular task. What's the specific boundary I need to set here? What are the exact words I'm going to use in setting that boundary? Again, so if you're worried about hurting feelings, what are the exact words I will want to use? And what system can I put in place to prevent this from occurring again? Now, I know some of you are thinking, but Kimberly, what if something falls through the cracks? What if my team makes a mistake? What if people think I'm not committed? What if people think I'm pushing my work off to someone else? Well, these are valid concerns. I want to be very clear. But there's also another truth here, is that something already is falling through the cracks. Your strategic work, your leadership development, your ability to see the bigger picture, and to engage in the work that's needed to continue to have a thriving team and business. You cannot do everything. So you have to be incredibly intentional about what you do, where you spend your time, and what gets your attention. So here's the beautiful thing about boundary systems. They actually make you a better leader. When you're not constantly putting out fires, you can actually focus on preventing fires. When you're not micromanaging every decision, your team is going to grow more capable. Will they occasionally make mistakes? Yes, but will they learn from them and get better? Absolutely. When you protect your high impact time, you create more value for your organization, not less. So here's your homework. Do the boundary audit I mentioned, identify your biggest energy drain, set one specific boundary for this week, and then pay attention to what happens. Not just to you and your time, but to your energy, your team's confidence, and your ability to focus on what actually really matters. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you want to go deeper into this and you want me to sit with you and walk you through and get deep into your time, your attention, I want you to go to my site and sign up. I'm actually creating something very special for this where we can sit together and do a boundary audit. So there's going to be a link in the show notes. Go do this. You don't have to do this by yourself. It is not easy. I have done this. And let me tell you, sometimes saying no is the hardest thing. Setting that boundary, boy, it feels really uncomfortable in the beginning, but it can completely change your career. So let's work through that. Secondly, if you like this topic, I've recently launched the Leader Learning Lab. We're going to be doing something really big with it in 2026, but in 2025, I'm doing some smaller stuff. So come over and see. Next month, we're going to be talking about conquering difficult conversations where, again, we're going to talk through a struggle and we're going to go through a framework to help you start to shift. Let's turn these Titanics, people, like ships can turn. You don't have to sink. Let's turn it in a smart way. Let's not sink ourselves. And I'm here to help you. That is what I am here for. All right. So I want you to remember as we close, you became a senior leader because you are good at solving problems. It is now time to apply that same strategic thinking to how you spend your energy and your time. Until next time, I am Kimberly Benoit, reminding you that the best leaders don't just work really hard, they work strategically. I've got two things before I let you go. One, if you've ever gotten any value from the show, please leave a 5-star review. It really helps and absolutely makes my day. The second thing is if you have any thoughts you'd like to share with me, please shoot me an email at podcast@kimberlyjbenoit.com. I'd love to hear from you. All right, see you in the next episode.